honest with you, I feel badly for the next generation, honestly. I don't know how they look at it and say, this government's just failing. And the sense of disenfranchisement with the American government. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that Democrats care so little on this topic that they didn't show up at your session either, Senator Johnson, when we talked about this exact Inspector Generals of your committee. And ultimately, if your elected leaders don't give a crap,
it just go to show you who gives a fuck about fraud and who gives a fuck about being the fraudster. The fraudsters are the ones that didn't show up to the courtroom.
Being empty. Then the fact that you had a hearing today about trillions.
Hearing. Literally.
The media's complicit. The Democrats are complicit.
Literally. Fake news. The Democrat rats. All of them. The Democrat rats. All of them are part of the fraud.
And I want to thank our witnesses for being here today as well, because a lot of you are deciding to go face to face with a lot of the fraudsters that are ripping off our taxpayers, and you're exposing the corruption that the typical mainstream media and our federal government and state governments have been ignoring, and in some cases actually enabling. But so I learned the hard way through many, many years of working on fraud, waste, and abuse within the federal government that this type of work doesn't earn you a lot of friends. So because of the work that all of you are doing, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of all of my Iowans and all of our taxpayers across the country. Americans are sending their tax dollars to Washington. You know what? They deserve to know how those taxpayer dollars are being spent. And they need to know that the money that they worked really hard for is being safeguarded and responsibly spent. And I found this really shocking in a lot of the work that I've done, that every single day, we are losing as a federal government $1.4 billion to fraud. That's not a week, that's not a month, that's every single day, 1.4. And that's just a fraud. That doesn't include all of the waste and abuse that we have in the federal government. That's a lot of money that has gone missing without anybody noticing, or in some cases even caring. So I've always said it, that if you can't find waste, fraud, or abuse in Washington, it's simply because you're not looking. You're not looking. So our witnesses have taken a hard look at this issue. I appreciate it. You have given Americans an opportunity to see what is happening with their own eyes, and because of that, the content has gone viral. So, yeah. We all know this, we've all seen this. So for the folks that are out there watching, YouTube journalist Nick Shirley's visit to the Quality Lyric Center helped all of us clear how easy it is to get away with fraud in Minnesota. The Lyric Center was given $10 million of taxpayer money to provide child care. Yet,
They stole my voice! They stole my fucking voice! Those no-way bastards! Listen, you're in danger. You hear me? Big danger. I don't know how they tracked you. It's impossible. But they're coming for you after what you did to them. They're outside your...
Folks, that is exactly the problem. It's the grift that keeps on giving. Mr. Shirley,
Pardon the interruption, sir, but it appears a large number of armed men have arrived at the mansion. Might I suggest you return home?
Testified before a committee that I chaired. They reported suspected fraud, including with these child care centers, years before you made it a national story. And I want everyone to recognize this is not a Democrat-Republican problem, because one of those witnesses is a Democrat.
I'm afraid the situation has escalated rather dramatically. It is imperative that you return as soon as conveniently possible.
She was exposing for fraud her family had relied upon when she was a child. And she recognized that the dollars that were committed to some of these programs with good intent were not going to the families that truly needed those taxpayer dollars. So those two whistleblowers, guess what happened? They were retaliated against because they brought the issue to light. And likewise, you are called a, quote, delusional conspiracy theorist, end quote, by Minnesota Governor Walz and accused of, quote, grandstanding by the state's attorney general. And similarly, when you expose Medicare hospice fraud in California, Governor Newsom's office responded by tweeting, quote, Shirley is the fraud. So, Mr. Turley, why do you think politicians are trying to stop people like you?
Because they're the fraudsters. They get money for frauding us.
Those who are actually committing the fraud.
I'm very sad that two governors of the United States being posted about somebody who's exposing fraud. All I've done is try to help America. And I've done it. They fight frankly hard. That's why they're so angry about it. Because they want to rely upon the fraud in order to continue to push their agendas inside their states.
Welcome home,
And
sir.
that's why
I have locked the door
fraud
to
gets
prevent
exposed.
any further
Is that
intrusion
money
while you
often
deal with the
goes
task at
back
hand.
Of not necessarily the politicians, but what do the politicians feel and do with their money inside the state.
Right, and it's a sad state of affairs. But what we see every day
The door is now unlocked.
Up to $500 billion fraud.
You should be aware, sir, that the gentlemen have taken up position around the mansion. Might I suggest a strategic approach? Might I offer my support? Well done, sir.
And I share that because they have hundreds of investigators and auditors at their disposal. Do you have billions of dollars at your disposal and
Pardon me, sir.
resources
I'm picking up movement on the lower
to
floor.
cover fraud?
No, I don't. In fact, I have to spend tens of thousands of dollars just to stay safe now.
Yeah.
Looks just like that from governors of the United States of America.
Exactly. And so, with very little resources, you have been able to uncover fraud. And our federal government doesn't seem to be able to track it down. So, I know I'm out of time. I've gone over.
Remarkable aim,
It
sir.
doesn't take millions and billions of dollars to expose fraud. We have to do a better job. I do have a bill, a package, that I have proposed. Senator Thune has charged me with doing this. A number of people, including the chair, have bills, anti-fraud bills that have been included in this anti-fraud package.
Attention, armed intruders. If you would be so kind as to lay down your weapons, raise your hands nice and high, and make your way to the nearest available exit. I'm doing my best, sir.
Senator Paul, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing. We need to take care of this issue. It's the right thing to do. Thank you. I know that. This is one of the most important hearings that we have had. Among the United States senators, which just proves that
I have now opened the doors to the lower levels. Might I suggest going straight to the basement? There appears to be some significant activity down there.
To me, another Republican, because there's not another Democrat here to question any of you represent a wide swath of the political spectrum, I imagine, on what is happening right now in our country. And I appreciate my colleague, Senator Ernst. We are going to miss her immensely.
It appears the basement is overrun. Perhaps a heavy hand is in order.
Many of you know she is retiring from the Senate, but I think her
It appears it appears to have been
you
damaged.
spoke about this. I love that you are, by the way, 24 years old.
I have opened a charming packet of biscuits. Opened the door. Opened the door.
Disrupting things. And man, does this bureaucracy and I would say cover-up need disrupting. And boy, does it take somebody like you that is fine with that. Because you're driven by passion for protecting your generation. Because you're coming after all of us.
Excuse me, sir.
Feel
I
this
believe
immensely
there's somebody
that
at the
that
door.
you inherit. And I'm just grateful for showing up here and showing that age, no matter your age, no matter where you're from, Americans demand that their government is accountable to them, are good stewards of their money.
This
Boy,
door
I'm so
has
impressed by you,
been
and I hope that your
locked.
family is as well. But I'm so glad that we have these, because I just want to point out, and this is nothing that I prepared for, but
Hey, come on, check it out.
Of Minnesota.
It's a good thing I got down here when I did.
President was
Now, if we're ever
bragging
gonna
that
get
all
out of
of
here,
these types
we
of
gotta fix
small
your fucking
businesses
smart
were
home.
reasons why he should be
Let me guess.
trusted with
Listen,
leading.
no way
And
shit
now
all
we're
over the
determining
news.
what
That
all
was you,
these
right?
small
That who we're
businesses like
dealing
your
with here?
hearing center were.
That figures.
He
I never
used
liked
this
those
as
driverless
a
pieces.
reason that he gave the American people
Emergency.
rights.
Emergency protocol. Lockdown.
It's defensive. Comes after a young kid is trying to point out about this generation where this money is really going and this fraud. And look at what the leader of California said. Did he really
All
say,
right, we gotta find an
in
exit point.
response to
They
you
got this place
uncovering
locked down pretty tight.
just
From what I saw,
unfathomable
they got more
fraud
coming.
and that-
Shit.
and I'm
This
gonna
is a
quote this
big
right?
fucking garage.
Full fight. Did he really say slow, surely,
Out of my
it's
sight.
the fraud?
You know, I had other plans today.
I didn't misread that. That wasn't his friend. So, somebody who wants to be the leader
Stay
of
sharp, we're
the
not out of the woods yet.
Democratic
There were
Party,
choppers
Show
incoming
his
when I
weight.
arrived. Hey,
I guess
you're all
character
upstairs,
is
right?
demeaning
All right,
you
we should try resetting
and
the AI. See
calling
if we can get the
names,
doors open.
ridiculing you.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that is Gavin Newsom.
It suggests that anybody can say like this. This is, oh my goodness, we just got caught. Let's throw out that bunch of blood in the water.
Really trying to
Go after other people, make sure people blame it on somebody else, but don't pay attention to us. What is that, like ink?
And actually, Gavin Newsom just yesterday is giving out $20 million to local journalists.
But hey, a little
30
bullet
million
damage
grants
in the
and
walls here,
$250,000
exploded window there.
to do journalism inside
that's
California. He's
Los
essentially
Santos.
paying for good press with our tax dollars.
I have to also commend my other colleagues.
Ah, it appears we have more
Saying
visitors
that California
outside.
set up the
Ah, shit.
Stop
Sounds like they're
Security
backups
Act.
here.
We should call it
Come on,
Protect
let's get out there.
Fraudsters Act. I mean, truly, this should be a wake-up call to everyone in America that the people that the Dems want to put in charge of their parties and in charge of their government, as
We
soon
gotta
as
take these
something is
fuckers
brought
down.
to their
Can you get this
attention
thing to open
in
the
a
doors?
good way, their
Sorry, sir.
response is not to
Locked
say,
up
let's
sound
roll up our
protocols
sleeves and
cannot
begin.
be
The response is to
deactivated.
say,
That's great.
nothing
We
to
are
see here.
sorry for the
Person that really
inconvenience.
happens when you
Would
try to
you
have
like
this
a call?
slow and a fraud themselves. And
Fuck
let's
you!
propose for this legislation not only so that we can keep covering it up,
They don't put
but
that in the
that we
orders, man.
can go after them.
Here they come.
On this
Let's go.
on the record, never once had a Democrat politician ever congratulated me or said thank you for exposing this, or even reached out to say, hey, maybe come check out what's happening inside our state. They are quite frankly complicit, John.
Well, maybe Clinton trying to cover up something, meeting an event. Coming up years over, it's made hard work for Americans. An entire
Good job.
fraud economy.
Okay, now pay attention.
By the Trump administration that's uncovering this, it's positive news that they're uncovering more and more of it, but it's sad that we are seeing so much of it. When I came to Washington, I really need to take a machete to all of the Democrats, all of the, this has always been, there's always, every time it brings up a problem, the Dem response is, we've always had fraud. We've always had coercion of individuals. And we've always had this. But they never want to say, let's do something about it. So I should ask my colleagues to propose response to this. If you want to do something about it, if you want to be aggressive, you start proposing solutions. My colleague, Senator Hurst, I also propose the Stop Child Care Scams Act, the Stop Fraud and Medicaid Act, the Ghost Students Act, punishing healthcare fraudsters. This is just a few that we are working on with my colleagues who are sitting that launched the Senate Task Force Against Fraud. And I know they don't like to talk about fraud. They get really itchy when we talk about any kind of fraud, especially election fraud. Especially election fraud. And instead of saying, okay, let's explore what people are saying, we're trying to discredit them, we're picking someone that knows nothing about it and then coming to hearing and saying, did President Trump win the election? The person would have no way of knowing and making them say that. And CC, they said that. Instead of actually exploring fraud and doing something about it, I think we need to make sure that we don't just uncover, we don't just address it, we don't just ask what we can do, but we bolster the American people people's trust in our elections. And the way we do that is to follow those where we are. We used to be a national event, getting ballot results for everybody but just 2 days later. Within just 2 decades, we turned that around. We get results by bedtime. People trust Florida elections. We can do that in this nation, which is why I want to propose legislation that says ballots by election day. Ballots by election day. So people have faith in the results of their election. Certainly, over time, is this something that will bring better trust by Americans in our election? Announce results by election day, ballots in by election day, basically military.
Senator, I do. Citizen verification answer for the person is eligible, but it does not answer what the applicant is that person. That's what we saw in California. So federal reform should require identity to be verified before a registration. It's active. I think Congress should look at that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. All of you. Very much.
Senator Hall. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for being here. Shirley, I just want to start with you. I want to say thank you for the terrific work you've done on exposing fraud all across the country, nowhere more so than the state of Minnesota. You know, it's funny, not long ago, the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota was sitting right in your seat, Keith Ellison. And I had a question or two for him about the fraud in that state. And he said to me that, it just didn't know it found it. I mean, he didn't know anything about it. You know, he was completely barred until the ball blown open, and there's just nothing that would have tipped him off. I find that interesting because here's thinking something for a 24-year-old independent journalist. You had a camera and a list of public spending records, right? So how did this fraud was so hard to find? How did you manage to find it when none of the public officials in Minnesota did?
The locations of the land.
Very well handled, sir.
And asked to enroll a child. And there was no way to enroll a child into any of these daycares. In fact, there were no children to be seen anywhere.
So in other words, you asked a few questions and you looked. You actually looked to see if there was fraud. Yeah. And you found it wide open everywhere, rampant. Everywhere.
A lot of the Medicaid programs inside of Minnesota, from the non-emergency school.
I can see why you and Franklin make a good team.
You know, I find it
You
so
see him?
interesting because
Tell him I
Ellison,
said-
when he was Attorney General, way back in 2018, 2019, I think we got closer to this effect, was actually pulled and had multiple referrals made to his office about fraud in some of the very programs that you looked at.
Nice friends you got
I mean,
there.
these are just years ago now.
Trust
He
me, I
had
know the
official
type.
referrals made to him.
I
He said, I
overjoyed
just
to
couldn't find any evidence of fraud. Do you think maybe there's a little bit of corruption at the governmental
I have
level
taken
in
the
the state of
liberty of
Minnesota?
ordering
Is that just maybe a possibility?
extra
Maybe some of these
champagne
guys are
and
maybe
a
on the
new
take,
terminal.
you think? I mean,
The
possible.
cleaning crew is all
Possibly, it's a certainty.
Yeah, I would say so too. I can prove it to you. I think he knows. That guy, after overlooking $250 million in fraud, he took $10,000 in campaign contributions to the very people who were committing the fraud, who came to see him in his office, asked him to please get state investigators off of their backs, which he did, asked him to shut down the investigations, which he helped with, offered to give them money, which he accepted. I mean, I think that's the answer to why can't any of these people find the fraud? Because they're getting paid by the fraudsters. And here you are, 24 years old, got a camera, got the public records, asking questions, and it's everywhere to be seen. I mean, this kind of corruption, and it's what, sadly, the Democrat Party wants to bring to this country all across America. I don't know why guys like Ellison are not being prosecuted, I have to tell you. And he sat there and lied under oath, right where you're sitting now. I asked him why he took this money. He said, well, I didn't take a dime. He took $10,000. It's on the record. I just want to commend you for what you've done. Mr. O'Keefe, I want to thank you for being here as well. And I want to thank you particularly for your investigations, so many of them, but particularly those into anti-Christian bias. I want to ask you just about Trevor Williams, the Washington Nationals. You found that Trevor Williams was shut down. He was muffled. He was gagged by his own team because he had the audacity to say that he didn't think that this poster, I think we got a picture of this, that this outrageous desecration of the Last Supper by this group that calls itself the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which is an anti-Christian group that actively mocks Catholics and other Christians. And he said he didn't like this. And for that reason, if I remember correctly, the Washington Nationals tried to shut him down. Tell us just about what your investigation found.
This is involving the Washington Nationals baseball team and civil rights violations, anti-Christian bias, and the Washington Nationals have fired this vice president for his bias against Christians. It's part of our expose exposing officials in corporations and in the administrative state, the deep state, breaking the law, pushing back. We have another one coming out inside the Pentagon next few days. Similar games.
Anyway, I look forward to that. Let me just say this. Were you surprised at all, given your investigation of the Trevor Williams incident, were you surprised at all when the commissioner of baseball just a few weeks ago threatened to penalize and fine two players on the Giants who put Bible verses onto one on their cap, I think one on their jersey? Commissioner of baseball came out and said, "Oh, that's against our rules. We're going to fine you." It was absolutely outrageous. Did that surprise you, given the sort of systemic bias, if I could use that phrase?
Not that it surprises me. There's a lot of irony and absurdity in reality, but it does not shock me. And I think sunlight, to quote Brandeis, is the best disinfectant. So they might do some things in open, but I think it's possible to shame the devil by capturing these candid remarks behind closed doors where they really talk about their intent and motivation. And that video caused a firestorm. And Nick Shirley, the video does not film itself. Citizen journalists get to show up and do the thing. And I think it's more difficult for bureaucrats to do that. So citizen journalists are going to do it.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and I think partly because of what you exposed, the kind of bias you exposed in the Trevor Williams case, the commissioner of Major League Baseball had to back down.
Yes.
When we confronted him on this issue, and admit actually the rules permit the players to write these things on their jerseys if they so choose. They permit the players to forego wearing politically themed jerseys at all, and he committed to me in writing that none of these players will ever be fined or disciplined for expressing their faith. But you and I both know he wouldn't have done that had he not been embarrassed by the facts that you and others brought forward. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. A video might be worth 10,000 words. It's been said that, these are sensationalistic, and this isn't the proper way to do it, young man, and we shouldn't be doing this, and this isn't, leave this to the government. But I think the point's also been made very clearly. The government has these inspector generals, has the GAO. I'm a fan of both of those groups, but I don't know if they have any inspectors. That actually go out on the road, any video, anybody's going and checking on this. So I think what you've shown people is what can happen with pictures, with video. And the pictures made a big difference. As you said, it's the normal virality of these videos. But there have actually been indictments. I think at least 15 indictments, 90 million, 100 million. An enormous amount of money now is being recovered and been found and misspent. I think that when we look at things, sometimes though we get lost in just the bad people. There are bad people, and there always will be bad people. That's why we have to police things, and companies do it instantaneously. Visa, they're instantaneously catching fraud. Your bank's catching fraud. Everybody is. And so we scratch our head and ask, why isn't government? Why the government have someone like Nick Shirley that worked for them? Why weren't we doing this? And there's a systemic problem. And the systemic problem is worth looking at because systemic problems can fix thousands of downstream problems. The systemic problem is basically this. You sign up for welfare at the state level. The payment comes from the federal level. The states look at federal payment as free because we have a printing press up here. We just add it to the national debt, the $40 trillion debt. The
How can I assist you,
numbers
sir?
that are spiraling out of control. But food stamps, Medicaid, you sign up at the state level. So if you tell a state that we're going to pay for 90% or 100% of Medicaid, if you expand it, is there any incentive for them to check people's credentials to make sure they're eligible for Medicaid or for food stamps? Is there any incentive to go like you did to the autism center?
Very good, sir.
No, because they're not paying for it. So the states have no incentive. So one of the things Senator Johnson and I and several others wanted to get added to the bill last year was trying to change some of these percentages. So ever since Obamacare, Obamacare enticed all the states to expand Medicaid.
Hello?
Under
Faber here. I heard there was something of a disturbance at your lovely home. I just wanted to assure you that that unfortunate incident had nothing whatsoever to do with me. I have nothing but the greatest respect for you and your work. I'm sure we're going to go on to do great things together. I'll be in touch soon. Yes.
Had a proposal that would have changed the formula back to this split formula, where states pay about half and the federal government pays half. And I think it was an $800 billion savings over about 10 years. And so we have to do the fraud, we have to police the fraud. We should be learning from what you guys are doing with investigative reporting. We should
Morse Mutual Insurance. How can we help you? I can do that.
The investigators are going out and doing what you're doing. So we should do that. And we also have to, as a legislature, look at these ratios and at these split performances. And you have to connect them. The people paying have to be doing oversight. Some of it's happening, but only because you brought it to light. Without these videos that some are calling sensationalistic, there'd be none of this. It just went on year after year, decade after decade. And I think this is the tip of the iceberg, and I commend you for what you've both done with exposing this. As far as the subpoena power, I'm happy to work with Senator Johnson on this, and I think we can look into particularly the harvesting. You know, in Wisconsin, when they had the difficulty of the mass mail-in ballots in 2020, when we probably, over half of your ballots were cast by mail, there was said to be 100,000 that weren't even signed, that there was no witness signature. Well, we should be looking into the harvesting. If there's evidence that with harvesting, people are harvesting ballots in an illegal or illegitimate way, that should be looked into. And so I'm happy to look at these companies, and we are happy to work with both of you on any information you have to bring to us. And I, for one, commend you for your work on this and what you brought to our attention. I think Senator Johnson had another question or two.
And you're quite honestly along the same lines that Mr. Hitler got. Aren't you as disappointed as I am? I've been doing this for around 16 years. We've had Dole come in. I've been supportive of 5Gs. I've been supportive of GAO. It just hasn't worked. I know in your testimony you say that IGs have saved $71 billion. I mean, that's probably the report itself, sort of the report. You still have $250 billion to $1 trillion of fraud occurring. It's just not working. And Senator Paul is putting his finger on the problem. When it's free money, you don't care about it. In his opening statement, he talked about what private sector companies do to prevent fraud on the front end. That's what we have to do. So I would really encourage Pogo to be around. Let's look for IT. Let's look for what GAO. I'm supportive of it. If it would work, it doesn't. And recognize that. So we're going to have to completely reform how those bodies operate, but we've got to look at the root cause of this. We have to align the incentive. The 91 match is it's legalized fraud. Medicaid, provider fees, provider taxes. It's not health care. I literally had the hospital lobby me when it passed the beautiful bill that was going to restrain the percent of the provider taxes. Wisconsin was pretty low, 1.8. Passed the bill right over to 6%. And apparently didn't do it quickly enough, so Dr. Oswald gives us the waiver to allow us to increase provider tax up to 6%. And a hospital, through an intermediary, lobby me and say, try and get Dr. Hodge to grant us that waiver, because so we'll be able to charge a $12 million provider tax. We'll get reimbursed for $18 million, so we'll come up to $6 million a year. They're not even thinking. I mean, you literally are asking for government to allow you to tax your customers $12 million so you can make additional $6. Again, it's legalized fraud. So until we are willing to address the root cause problem, that all this free federal government money is not being administered by the states properly, they don't care. They don't care to check eligibility. They get credit for providing all this health care for all their citizens,
They don't care about the elderly. They don't care that a third of the hospice centers are in Los Angeles County, that when you defund 400 of them, none of them even complain. They just don't care. So I guess that's my question to you. Caterpillar, which I think is a great organization, focus on the root cause. Focus on the legalized fraud. The way these